It's that time of week again, off and running on our latest edition of the National Racing Report from Aqueduct Racetrack. Things are quiet down in the paddock, not so in our clubhouse studios, as the three-way pace battle of Richard Migliore, Andy Serling, and Jason Blewitt commences from the starting gate. Look, Breeders' Cup a couple weeks old, but thankfully for Laurel, we have plenty of racing to show with some familiar names.
Yeah, it's some good races at Laurel. It's a good race at Churchill Downs. There's good racing around the country.
And the weather actually cooperated yesterday. We got the rain out of the way, and I thought it was a pretty nice day, coast to coast.
Yeah, and the turf season, at least in the Big Apple, in regards to the Graded Stakes Company, came to a close with the Grade 3 $200,000 Red Smith, and that is where we are starting on tonight's show. We will have a solid field. In fact, this was definitely a Grade 2, if not a little tougher. Solid group of horses, and let's pick it up with a little less than one lap to go. They're down the backside for the final time.
I don't think it was a particularly strong pace, but it was a contested pace, Richie, and I think that's something that's a distinction between a horse like last week in Long Island, creating her own pace. But there's no doubt about it. The gray Mr. Maybe was just the best horse.
He was. I mean, when he tips out and comes wide, you know, and he saved ground the first two turns, though, he picked these horses up so quickly. It was over in a matter of strides. And I agree with what you're saying. Mr. Speaker had to keep the horse on the lead, War Dancer, is that correct?
Yeah.
Honest. So it was just enough to keep him, you know, under a little bit of pressure. But man, the way this gray horse accelerates, Jason, he's eye-catching.
He's very eye-catching, and this goes back to an eye-catching operation in Chad Brown, who picked this horse up on behalf of Michael Dubb and head of Plains Partners regarding a private buy-off, Butch Reed. And it's amazing, in two races for Chad, Mr. Maybe has never been better, and Chad had the foresight to stretch this horse out to longer races on the turf.
Well, I think that's a really important factor there, Jay. I mean, he saw a horse that was competent and decent going a mile and a 16th or so, but he stretched him out, and that was the big difference, sort of like a mini Big Blue Kitten.
Well, and some horses just seem to get more air. They don't run out of oxygen, and that seems true with most Chad Brown trainees. They just seem, especially right now, I was thinking about this, the Saratoga he had,
yeah,
the Belmont he had, the Breeders' Cup he had. At some point, is there a lull? There has not been a real lull, except for maybe a week in Saratoga where he, you know, just things didn't go his way.
Yeah, he lost the training title because he had a bad week in Saratoga, or else he would have won. Now, Todd had a bad week before that, so fair is fair. But Chad's just been phenomenal with his horses, and Mr. Maybe is another example. And a horse, and I know talking to Chad about the horse, he thinks this horse has a chance to be a factor in the big races next year. Whether or not they go forward with him or they put him away for a little while remains to be seen.
Yeah, it strikes me as a horse who's just at this point an unfinished product, given what he's been able to accomplish for Chad in just two races and basically in the blink of an eye.
It'll be interesting to see when he loses a race again, because right now he's got 3 straight wins. The last time he lost, I bet him in Saratoga. He was $4.80 to $1. I made a huge bet on him, and he finished third.
Well, you were on a little bit of a bad run in Saratoga. Maybe you threw the lasso out on him. No, but you know, it's interesting what you're saying too, though, because he is one of the few horses, like a Big Blue Kitten, that really wants to go these marathon distances, the longer distances, and the way he does it, I have a hard time seeing him losing unless he gets unlucky.
No, I agree. He's a very, very good horse. And you look at the horses in America, why doesn't he have a chance to join the top horses?
He does.
We'll find out next year.
No question about it. Mr. Maybe, the goods and the chalk players, or I should say the handicappers, were right on him, making him a clear favorite at 680 or 2 to 1. He paid 680 to win, even though he was taking a big jump up in class.
You know, we talk about this with Chad Brown's horses when Pletcher's going well, and you say they're overbet. But if they keep winning, are they really overbet?
I guess the answer is no, because they're winning.
Exactly.
And speaking of Todd Pletcher, let's see what he can do with the big long shot in Isabella Sings, who was the wire-to-wire upset winner of Saturday's Mrs. Revere. This always comes up a solid race in a big field, and you had contenders basically from the Midwest and up and down the East Coast.
Yeah, there are a lot of things to be said about this race. I thought Partisan Politics, who's in the red and white silks and one of the favorites, I thought Javier didn't do a great job of getting her save any ground at any point. But I thought Chad Brown's other horse, Tammy the Torpedo, was in a good spot here in 5th between horses, but ends up going wide in the backstretch and losing all position. But the truth is that this horse, Isabella Sings, got lost in the wagering in a big field, and she is a monster as long as she's not running in New York.
It is pretty remarkable. The other thing about her is she's one of those horses that's better off just letting her bowl along. Don't get in her way. And we've talked about this before. Paco Lopez, that's his strong suit. You know, when he just allows horses to kind of run freely. And you think about the fractions, Andy, that she set, in some of her recent races in the Pebbles, 22-4, 45-4. Before that, the Boiling Springs over at the Monmouth, 45-4. 48 to her was basically, a much softer kind of pace.
Yeah, but it was probably a less firm turf course. Sure. But I hear what you're saying. He gave her that breather in the second quarter, and he gave everybody some confidence. They all sort of came to her. And then he's really confident here. I mean, she's going easily. I was watching this the first time and thinking she's going to win. Now, you see Onus, one of the favorites for Shug, making the wide run. Tammy the Torpedo is inside of her. Partisan Politics is moving outside of the gray Onus, who looks like, at this point, Partisan Politics may make a run, but the winner's having none of it. And it was a very good ride by Robbie Alvarado in the long shot, Ray to Bateria for trainer Graham Motion. He gave an exceptional ride. And Rich, this is a good example of what you talk about. You ride a long shot and you try to get a little bit lucky, and he did, but it was a good ride.
Yeah, because you're not under the same pressure as the guys on the favorites. If you get stopped, well, no one was expecting that much. But I thought it was a great example, Paco Lopez, allowing those guys, like you said, that moment of hope and then pulling the rug. And psychologically, that really is very detrimental to the horses that make that first run at you.
Well, it's also what we talk about, Jason, if you use your horse's speed, you make everybody play your game, and they have to chase to keep up, and it ends up tiring them out more than you.
And I like what you say, Mig. They've got to get to where you've already been.
Yeah, they're running on ground that I've already run through. So, and I think, just getting back to Partisan Politics quickly, I just, watching it, I don't know how many options Javier had to get into that spot.
I don't disagree. It's a very tough thing. The funny thing is, though, I don't think there's a better rider in the country than Javier Castellano of getting good position towards the inside with outside posts. So when he doesn't do it, I'm surprised. So maybe that means he really didn't have any options, because he normally does do it well.
Yeah, but watching that, it just seemed like the spaces inside of him are always occupied. At one point, you see him kind of take back, trying to look for that break. There's nothing there. He's got to go forward. He was hung up outside of Shug's filly. Sometimes you just can't get where you want to be.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, in very good company, starting the show, we have a couple of trainers that have won already that may be finalists for an Eclipse Award, along with Bob Baffert for 2015. And we go for the cash down at Laurel Park. That's right, Maryland Millions Day, and some good sprinters coming up. In fact, a whole bunch of divisions. Stay with us. It's the National Racing Report from Aqueduct Racetrack. The Mig, Andy, Jason, glad you're still with us on MSG Plus as we set sail for our third week of racing, getting back in the swing of things during the fall meet this coming Wednesday with the first race post of 12:20. Kind of a quiet weekend coming up, but that will definitely propel us forward into Holiday Fest, including the Cigar Mile.
There will be so many good races here and around the country. We'll need 2 shows to cover them all.
No kidding. Cigar Mile Day, Saturday, November 28th, couple days after Thanksgiving. We start early, 11:50 a.m. We'll have the Remsen, the Demoiselle. That is a loaded card. And hopefully Private Zone, who's on your screen right now, will be back to look for his second consecutive Cigar Mile victory. Let's move on to a good group of sprinters, including the New York-bred Palace, and Saturday's the Francis Memorial Dash. Joshua Navarro, Mig, take us through the backstretch run, because he was disqualified aboard Treble Kid.
It's really hard to understand what's going through Joshua Navarro's head, because you're on a fast horse. You broke cleanly. Go on enough to start easing over. He never goes on. He just squeezes these guys down. And maybe this would have worked before Film Patrol, but how can you possibly think you're going to get away with it?
I think if it was the Flintstones, he probably would have gotten away with this. It reminds me of the Seinfeld when George Costanza pushes the old lady out of the way and the walker on the way to get out of the burning fire. Watching the head-on, both you and I didn't bet the race, and we came to the same conclusion. This is about as obvious a DQ as there could be. And frankly, I think you could say that Gentleman's Bet might have won this race if he hadn't cut him off like that.
Well, he got put in such a ridiculous position, and the rider's trying to steady out of there, and Daniel Centeno did a really good job without actually having to rip his head off to get out of that spot. And then he got to bouncing with Palace, and I think an argument could be made that this horse could have been placed behind Palace.
I completely agree with you. I mean, you and I didn't watch the inquiry together, but we talked about it this morning and had the exact same feeling. When they said the winner's been disqualified, I figured, well, he's going to be placed behind Palace. He wasn't. I don't understand it. Palace wasn't winning, but his trip was certainly compromised. The winner's a very nice horse, the horse who finishes first, but the second horse deserves the win.
Absolutely. You just can't do this. And again, it goes back to, you can't take somebody's position. They've got that position. He's not going forward. He's still got his horse in hand. And what I love now is after this horse checks out, now watch the riders, now he's going to look. Well, it's a little bit late to check where you're at, isn't it?
And he keeps coming over, Richie. It's not like that wasn't even enough for him. I agree. I thought this was really dangerous race riding, to be honest.
Well, it's because it's at a point in a race, Jason, that you're in full control of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I think this is a spot where the steward should really be tough on this guy and give him more than what's the normal, amount of days guys get. You think about guys in a stretch drive. They're head and head for the lead. A guy hits left-handed, comes out, bumps this horse a little bit, beats him a nose, gets disqualified, rightfully so, and gets 3 days. This guy will get 3 days. That's like giving the same sentence for jaywalking as it is assault and battery.
No, I totally agree with you. I think it's ridiculous that they have these rules, and there's supposed to be some leeway. If you give 3 days for a guy who commits a stretch foul and he's trying to win the race and it's not particularly dangerous, 3 days, fine. They should give this guy 30 days because he didn't just endanger the person inside of him, he endangers the 3 guys inside of him. Yeah. Because there could easily be a spill, and who knows the guys behind them. Okay. It's a very dangerous thing he did.
Yeah, you're riding somebody's horse against other people's horses, and not to mention the jockeys on their backs. Glad everybody stayed up and was okay, and we go, wow. Gentleman's bet. Do you remember this horse? I had to take a double take. I go, oh, I remember him coming to Saratoga a few years back in the summer of 13.
Yeah, I bet him in the Breeders' Cup Sprint at Santa Anita. I think when Secret Circle won.
Right.
Actually, he ran really well.
He was third,
lead top of the stretch. Yeah, he ran well at a big price. And his trainer, Ron McKett's a really good guy, and he's always in Saratoga. Actually, lives across the street from me in Saratoga. That's how I know him a little bit. A terrific guy. Nice to see him win.
Oh, absolutely. You know what stood out to me, too? Gentleman's Bet has 6 wins, 4 thirds, never been second. Well, he ran second yesterday, but he's still not second. He's got a 7th win.
And the winner's share, that $350,000 purse, puts him around $750 for his career. He's now 7 for 16 as well. Let's move on to the Safely Kept. This basically turned into a one-horse procession, a powerhouse, pulverizing effort from Hot City Girl, the New York bred and half-sister to La Verdad.
I'm going to tell you something. She's going to take over for La Verdad. She has been absolutely tremendous. The other thing is, she's been winning on the front end. I'm not 100% convinced she has to be on the front end, though she seems to be running well there. Were you at all bothered the way she was turning her head, Richie, in the stretch?
She was lugging in, and she's shown a little bit of a propensity to do that in the past, and I'm not quite sure why. Sometimes I think, Andy, horses get into a habit because when they work them in the morning, riders go right down to the rail. And I think they get it in their head, some horses, that as they go faster, they've got to get down to the rail because they've basically been conditioned that way. And it appears to me that was what she was doing, and Cornelio was straightening her up. He rode her out, but, probably didn't necessarily need to, but boy, how good has she gotten?
I think she's just tremendous. I mean, it's very interesting to see what you do with her. I imagine, running this race down at Laurel, I imagine that Linda's thinking, well, this is a good prep for the Barbara Fritchie. Whether or not she gets a race before that race is in Valentine's Day. It'll be here before you know it. It's just 3 months from now. But right now, they're going to lose La Verdad, I imagine. Right. But they've got a horse to replace her. This filly is good.
And it goes back to that mare throwing La Verdad, Hot City Girl, and even good old NF's Destiny, who was just, a fast horse. And when he was healthy, he was a classy runner, just a hard-hitting, tough sprinter.
And I'm going to give a little props to Richie and I. We put this horse on Trips and Traps in the brewery back in May before anybody knew who she was. We were a little ahead of the curve on her. Yeah, but doesn't happen often.
No, but you're the one who really, tabbed it in the Charlestown Oaks too. I mean, that night, 7-1 on her that night.
Well, I liked her in the Prioress. Now, as it turned out, I don't know that she was going to be cavorting that day, so it was a good scratch by Linda, especially finding a different spot. But this is a horse that was against it in the Mother Goose and ran very well that day. Linda's got quite a bar in her.
And I had gotten a text from him. They had crossed the wire 3 seconds later in that race at Charlestown. Who texts me as I'm laying in bed turning off the Naira HD app?
You listened to me in bed.
Nope, I didn't, but I was happy it cashed. Let's move on to the Richard Small Stakes, named for the iconic late trainer. Won so many races down in the Mid-Atlantic and trained Concern to a Breeders' Cup Classic win in '94. And here comes Paige McKenney, the favorite, who has put up some big numbers down there. Now 13 for 40 lifetime.
Who's this horse Duff that beat this horse last time by a nose down at Parks when he was 2-5? He's finishing second to likes of Commissioner. He's running behind Moreno and Golden Lad. None of those horses in here. He galloped.
And look at the way this horse gets such a distinctive stride. His head's straight out and down, and it's a little bit unusual, but man, it's almost like he's running downhill. And Horatio Caramanos, a guy who just tears it up in the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, he is so consistent and a very distinctive riding style, but man, He was much the best.
Yeah, this horse is just too good for his competition in this race.
Pretty cool horse. Mary Epler, the winning trainer. Horatio Caramanos aboard. PA bred 5-year-old gelding by Eavesdropper as we get on to the City of Laurel. And a fairly quick turnaround for El Kabir, one of our friends from last winter and last March's Gotham winner. He did not run well Breeders' Cup Saturday in the Bold Ruler at Belmont Park, but John Terranova shipped him down, and he will win a resolute 3-horse photo.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. If you're going to run El Kabir back 2 weeks after he ran as badly as he ran the Bold Ruler, he's beaten almost 10 lengths, you better win this race, because if they don't run well, you're open to an enormous amount of second guessing.
Yeah, no doubt, but maybe he was just frustrated with that effort because he had trained forwardly and then he kind of came up with this subpar effort, although I believe that some horses just need to knock the ring rust off. They just have to get back in that competition mentally so that they're prepared for what's coming, and I think obviously it worked out this time. Plus, these were straight 3-year-olds, not older horses.
Yeah, we'll see how well he does in the future. Actually, the horse running down the rail there, those yellow silks, that's the aforementioned Duff, who had beaten the winner of Paige McKenney in the previous race, so he did actually justify that performance. He almost gets the money here. We'll see where they go with El Kabir. I know he won our races like the Gotham. Are you convinced? Is he the kind of horse that could run in a race like the Don? Is he not good enough? Is he really a router?
I don't believe he is. I think circumstances set up well for him to win like a race like the Gotham. I think he's a better horse one turn. I've always felt that way, and you know, I had to rethink that a little bit because he did win 2-turn races. I still think he's a better one-turn horse.
I'm with you. We might both be wrong, but I agree.
And what's wrong with leaving him, say, in the Big Apple with Terranova over the winter and pointing to races like the Toboggan and maybe even the Carter if he's good enough come springtime?
Well, I'm sure they would be pointing to Carter. That has to be a long-term goal for that, a Carter into a mile if things are that, if he's that good. He can run them. How he gets there, we'll see.
All right.
Well, what about a race like the General George in the winter, 7/8 too? I mean,
definitely.
You know, he's already won over the surface.
No question about it. Shipped okay as we move on to the James F. Lewis. Couple races to bring you still from Laurel, both 2-year-old races, and let's pick this one up as they fly off the far turn. King Krantz and the Zayat Blue down on the rail is the favorite.
Yeah, John Terranova and the Zayats were unlucky with the draw with King Krantz, which forced him to show a lot more speed than he'd shown in every race. And I thought he hung in very, very gamely. Now, the race was won on the front end. He disappointed 4-5. I got a feel coming out of this race, though, if he had drawn an outside post, Richie, he probably would have won.
I agree with you, because he wouldn't have been under the pressure he wound up under. And I feel like he's been a bit unlucky. To think that he's still a maiden is something else. And what's going to happen one day is someone's going to pick up an overnight thinking they've got a real good maiden in, and they're going to look up and see King Krantz as a maiden, and he's going to be very tough to beat. How about the winner, though? Awesome speed. I love that, you know, Alan Goldberg trains off the farm. He shipped in. Bad race first time. Now he's 2 for 2 with Horatio Caramanos.
Yeah, no, he seems like he's a horse that can run a little bit. It's hard to get really, for me at least, to get a full grasp on these horses if I haven't really seen them run and where they stand. But let's face it, there's plenty of room in that 2-year-old colt division to be able to put yourself forward. And maybe he's the kind of horse that we'll see in races like our new Lost in the Fog, and then going on the Jimmy Wingfield and the Fred Capicella heading towards the Bayshore.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he'll stretch out. He is an awesome again out of an aptitude mare, and he was just running for the 3rd time for Alan Goldberg in his career. Let's move on. A very hot sire in Uncle Mo, who got a stakes winner with Lost Raven, who had debuted for a maiden 50 tag at Belmont in the mud about a month and a half ago. 4-5 from the outside post, and she scampers away for Pletcher and Franco.
And very good placement by the Pletcher barn in finding this race to run a horse who had broken its maiden in a 50 with a 69 buyer. They find a $100,000 stake. Horse is just better than. This horse has moved forward. Certainly, we don't know how good she really is. It wasn't a particularly fast race, but you know what? You find a $100,000 race where you don't have to be that fast to win. You got the $60,000 winner share, Richie.
Yeah, and another winner for Uncle Mo, another stake winner for Uncle Mo. I mean, obviously, Mike Rapoli's so involved with the stallion, and she won very easily. I agree with you. It wasn't a fast race, but I like when Manny Franco kind of cracked his hands on her coming to 8th pole. She had a response, and she went on and did what she had to do without a lot of pressure.
Yeah, second stakes win on this show for trainer Todd Pletcher, who leads all trainers with over $20 million in purse money won for 2015. Chad Brown sitting second. Bob Baffert is third, as we have 3 more races remaining. A trip out to Del Mar, and of course we take a look back at Tommy Macho, who was pretty good, but stay tuned for the Taves hat trick. Back back to the Big A, a little paddock cleaning. We cover all the angles on this show, lest anybody think we do not. It's the Mig, it's Andy and Jason rolling down the stretch from our second-floor studios at Aqueduct. Let's head out to Del Mar a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. What do you want to say, Mig?
I just think I could use that little machine at my farm. I kind of like the way that's
like a little mini
Zamboni.
Mini paddock Zamboni, exactly. Rangers, by the way, 8 consecutive victories. But let's see Taves on ice winning 3 straight for Bob Baffert as he takes Saturday's Bob Hope Stakes.
I love the start of this. I don't like this angle. I like to be able to see a straightaway shot. On the other hand, it's kind of neat how the 2 comes over, takes the 1 out of the race, the 5 came out, affected the 6 in the air, and the winner caves on ice. Well, you got a perfect trip.
Yeah, well, he just skated to the lead. I said, all right, this is a little too cheesy. You know?
Yeah,
well, watching that head on, I think it's kind of what I like to talk about at times. Young horses try to run to empty space. There was a lot of space inside of the gap, and it kind of affected the 1 horse the most.
Except there was no empty space for the 2. He forced the 1 into that empty space.
No, but
sure.
I think they look at it in the gate, and they see that, and they want to run to that, and you kind of force the 1 over. But we were talking about it before we started taping. Taze has more horses named for him than anybody we can remember.
No, it's unbelievable. I mean, there's 3 horses we know of that are named for this guy. We don't even know if he's a hockey fan particularly. Apparently, a lot of people involved in the game are fans. The second-place finisher in here was a private purchase, I have to believe, by owner Dean Reeves, of course, Mucho Macho Man, given to Kathy Ritvo, and thought ran pretty well and looked like it was going to upset the favorite in here.
Yeah, made a really strong run at him in only his 2nd start, where Taze on ice, this is his 5th start. I think that's when we talk about the foundation comes in, because it looks like he's on his way to victory here. Maybe just the seasoning on Taze on ice was the difference.
And he was also very game, give him some credit. But once again, what about the start? The 4 Taves on ice had that clean start. The 5 came out a little bit. Now, the 5 created his own problems in the start. He wasn't a victim. He was actually the aggressor. Still, winner was probably best, but they both ran pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting action on the runner-up. Mac Daddy Mac, kind of up and down a little more. He's by put it back, and if you remember him, he was so fast for Alan Jerkins and Noel Winter. He'd run with his head out and down. I'd like to see this horse drop his head a little. I can't tell in that shot if he's got a shadow roll, but might make his stride a bit more efficient.
He's been a neat sire, actually, put it back, and I know he's a horse that's near and dear to Richie's heart, put it back, because it's very important for you that he won the Revere Ridge that year, now to Woody Stevens.
Why is that? I'm trying to remember.
It's a pretty good story. We'll talk about it after the show. Put it back defeated. Who was the Bob Baffert horse that
Flamethrower.
Very good.
Wow.
It was Noel Winter and the Chief against Baffert and Bailey and Flamethrower at a big price that year, or at a short price in the Revere Ridge. Let's finish things off with Todd Pletcher's Discovery victory last Wednesday in the slop. Kind of a cold, rainy day at the Big A, and Tommy Macho with Javier Castellano got it done. I think Todd's won this race 6 times.
The key to this race was Javier being aggressive at the start with the winner in here and making sure Tommy Macho was in the game, not allowing the favorite here, Ocean Knight, to be able to control the pace. Tommy Macho, though, was our the best.
He was powerful, and I really don't think that Ocean Knight really handled the going very well. He never looked comfortable to me.
Yeah, we talked about this too.
But I agree with you. Tommy Macho, terrific ride. Javier said, you know what, I'm putting him in the game. He had a plan, he executed it, and he had the horse to take advantage of it.
And he's a horse who was a little unlucky in Mountaineer, where he was down on the inside, not the place to be, and he just buried this field. It's as simple as that. Ocean Knight's a good horse, and you're right. I don't know, it's not fair to say he's better than Tommy Macho after today's performance, but he didn't run his true race in there.
No, he didn't. And just even down the backstretch, he was kind of more up and down when he's got a much more efficient stride than that. And I just think he didn't really care for the going that much. How about the Never Say Die ride by Johnny Velasquez on the 2nd place finisher? I mean, he was in a drive from the half-mile pole, and he kept coming to be 2nd.
Yeah, he got a good trip. I thought that Johnny did a good job of getting him into position early in there, but he was at best 2nd best, Made from Lucky. This is actually a reversal of the way it was in that West Virginia race, where Made from Lucky was able to make the big outside run, and Tommy Macho was towards the inside.
And those are Paul Pompa Jr. silks, by the way, with Tommy Macho. Private purchase for Paul earlier in the year, and the winner, a 3-year-old son of Macho Uno, as we wrap things up with Mr. Speaker's little brother in Friday's 8th race, the feature. It was a good one and certainly worth waiting around as John Velasquez and Shug power off the far turn, and a confident Johnny V at this point in the stretch.
It looked like he didn't want to leave his company. Like maybe he was worried that Fireway might start waiting on horses, because he was using it like it was a morning workout when you're in company with a horse, and then he sets him down late, and he does what he needs to do. We talked about Mr. Maybe, Andy, liking these marathon distances. Well, Shug found the whole card would fire away too, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And these horses have the pedigree, and they handle going long. Now, how good he really is, well, based on this race, he's not good enough to move forward and be effective in stakes company. But listen, Point of Entry wasn't really going anywhere for a long time in his career, and he blossomed. So it's certainly possible these horses do get better as they get older, and nobody better to do that than Shug.
Yeah, well, we've seen that, time and again with Shug. Horses continually improving, and I do think this horse is a bit of a horse that waits on horses. He's not going to like wow you and draw off by 3-4 lengths. I think he likes to have a fight.
No, he's won 2 straight races. I bet him 3 back when he was 7-1. He got beat at the wire.
Well, you'll be getting them today at 12:20, my friend, the first of 9 on a gorgeous Sunday at the Big A. And speaking real fast with Shug, you like Redguard? Because Redguard was Shug's other turf winner on Friday's card, and he easily disposed of an okay field of maidens.
He was a promising maiden that obviously had some issues and missed a lot of time, then got rained off the turf, and now with 2 races, he's shown a little more speed, broke his maiden earlier in the week, and the horse can go on to Florida. We'll see what Shug does now with him. He's certainly not afraid to run him down in Florida.
No, and just watching Shug work and getting the most out of all of these horses it's a treat, really. We're lucky to have him.
He's the master, and maybe Shug will have something next weekend in the Cardinal. We'll have the Delta Jackpot for you, and maybe a little Cigar Mile preview on the National Racing Report a week from now on MSG+. That'll do it, though, for the Mig, Andy, and myself. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time right here on MSG+.